First of all, excuse my bad English. Okay? What?
So far, so good.
I prepared my word in Hebrew, but when I get here, I knew that I should do it in English, so I fastly shift to English. Okay, I will talk about the story, a phenomenon story related to a phenomenon figure, Palestinian figure, named Khalil Sakakini. If there's anybody here from Jerusalem, he should know Sakakini. Okay, this is the story of library of Khalil Sakakini, born in Jerusalem in 1878, died in Cairo 1953. He was a Jerusalem educator, he was a Christian, author, one of the greatest Palestinian educators in the first half of the 19th century. So I can say that he was, to 48, he was a celebrity here in Palestine and especially in Jerusalem. He wrote pioneering books in teaching Arabic. He was a social and political activist from the end of the Turkish era. Sakakini set up and ran 2 private schools attended by Arabs, Jews, and Christians. You all know about democratic school, or free school. He was the pioneer in that field. His first school in 1909 in Jerusalem, no exams, no attending schools, and no homework. It was a multicultural school. His second school in Jerusalem, Nahda, in 1938. His students were Jews from Moyal family and from Azulai family, Moyal and Azulai. He had a lot of Jews friends. For instance, Yaakov Yehoshua, father of Aleph Bet Yehoshua, and also Gideon Weigert, the late Gideon Weigert, was his student and his friend. So, in 1937, he moved into his new home in the Katamon neighborhood, a new neighborhood outside of all Jerusalem, a neighborhood that was considered the epic or the epicenter of the Jerusalem Christian bourgeoisie. In his diaries, Sakakini wrote about his private home dream, especially wrote about the dream of the grand library. Indeed, the library was in the center of the house, in the living room. On its shelves were about 4,000 books. Books in education, psychology, philosophy, history, and Arabic poetry. He asked his son, Seri, who had his only son, Seri, who had studied in America at that time, and also his friends who were abroad, to bring him any rare and interesting books. Sakakini prided himself on his guests and showed them the treasure he has at home. There were other educated Palestinians in Jerusalem who had private libraries like Sakakini. I don't know if you heard about Arabic literature or Arabic poet named Safra. He had also a major library, and also all his books were taken. But none of them talked and admired as much about his library as did Sakhnin. You have his picture here in his library. In '48, during the war events known as the Nakba, the Palestinian Nakba, Sakhnin took his diaries and his two daughters and moved to Cairo. His wife, Sultana, had already died in 1939 in Jerusalem. Like many, Sakhnin thought that they would return to their homes within a few days or weeks until the war was over. But the war ended and they did not return. When Sakhnin knew there was no return to Jerusalem, he published a farewell letter from his library. The letter was very deep and exciting. It says, "Goodbye, my books. Goodbye, my dear library. I spent long nights reading and writing as people slept. My books are not an inheritance from my father or grandfather. At home, we had nothing but the New Testament, which we never read. I did not ask my books from anyone. I bought every book with my little money I had. I filled the library from the floor to roof. I wanted to make the whole house one big library, where we could cook, eat, receive guests, sleep, and the books we would have for armrests and blankets. And if attacked, we would use them as a shield and beat with them all intruders into our house. Goodbye, dear library. I don't know what happened after leaving. Have you been stolen, burned, taken to a respectable place, or thrown into the street and used by market sellers? It's hard to say goodbye after you have been my spiritual food and all my life. Now that I lost you, I feel my life without purpose. I yell loudly and say," this is the point here, and say, anyone who has ears and a conscience, I would like to thank everyone who finds one of my books and returns to me. During the war, end of quote. Till now, it's difficult to me to read this letter. During the war of '48, libraries, archives, photographs, and furniture were robbed of Arab homes, especially in Jerusalem. The house of the first prime minister was full of carpets, Arab carpets from Jerusalem. Gish Amit, Aaron Shai, Rona Sela wrote about that, about all that rubble. The number of books taken to the library of the Hebrew University exceeded 30,000 books. The books are to this day in a department called Abandoned Property, AP, for those who were there. No one is allowed to attend that department except the library staff. I myself tried and did not succeed despite the Jewish protection I had. In 1968, after the war of '67, Sakhinin's daughters He has two daughters, Hala and Dumya. They lived in Ramallah and died singles. They didn't marry, didn't have any sisters. Sakhnin daughters moved to Jerusalem, trying to see their home in Katamun. It is now in Yordeh Sirah Street. Yordeh Sirah, למי שיודע קטמון, Yordeh Sirah נדמה ל10, מספר 10, קטמון. קטמון, the new Katamun, not the old. New Katamun started to build in the beginning of the 14th century. So his daughters moved to Jerusalem trying to see their home in Katamun and were not allowed by the new owners. They went to the National Library and were prevented from seeing their father's book. Arab Knesset member Jamal Zahalka contacted the library management and asked for transfer Sakhnin library to Ramallah, where is the Palestinian leadership, but the request was rejected. Unfortunately, this painful story is not the only one. There is tens or hundreds, but this story is a unique one. Theft of libraries, archives, and photo albums, especially from Jaffa Street in Jerusalem. Jaffa Street was full of studios, photo studios, yes. Palestinians, American, Jews. It was the center of photo studios. The street were demolished after 1948. Demolished and rebuilt again. Let me show you, this is his picture in his room. This is his house in Katamun till now. Vitso are using the house. Vitso. See the gate here? The gate of the house, outside the street. Ma? Yeah, but okay, and this is the house when he was standing with his family, exactly on the entrance. Okay, in the same place of the entrance. This is his two daughters. One of his daughters, Hala, his sister Nelia, and his son, only son, Sari, and his younger daughter, Dumya. Unfortunately, this painful story is not the only one. Theft of library archives and photo albums is a cultural theft and is a black spot. This does not help building peace projects with Palestinians or partnership. On the contrary, I hope someday Israel will have to return that property to its owners. It seems to me that the library of Birzeit University or the library of Al-Najah University in Nablus has enough place for these books. Thank you.